those of you who don't know me, my name is Bullerwell. I'm Managing Director of Renix UK. I've been in highways for 25 years, which seems to have skipped along very quickly. September of this year will be my 25th year in highways. As Richard said, I've worked with Richard in Northumberland. I've seen a lot of different sides of highways in my time. I've worked in public sector, I've worked in private sector, I've worked in material supply, I've worked in contracting firms. So compliance is something that I've always been passionate about. I think it's something that we cannot lose sight of. And it's important that we understand the true cost of compliance and non-compliance. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that there are products left, right and centre on the network that are not compliant. The vast majority are indeed compliant. However, there's still an alarming number of products that I see on the network every single day, and I make no apology for pointing them out. I can go a trunk road network, I can go through a local authority network, and I can point out the non-compliant products on that network. And whilst that still remains, we have a problem. Compliance itself, we have standards. We've heard some great presentations this afternoon about standards. Standards and compliance not only protect the reputation of the company, they improve the customer journey, and most importantly, standards are there for a reason. They save lives, and we can't forget that. From the smallest product to the type of installation that we do. Standards, quality regulations are the foundation of safer highways for the customer and the road worker alike. So whether you are driving on the network, whether you're working on the network, there is no doubt you will be using products from the smallest element to the biggest piece of technology that still has a required standard, still has a required quality and standard regulation to meet, and it's so important that we maintain that. Often when I talk to people offline, shall we call it, they say, yeah, compliance is, we know it happens now and again, but it's not serious, it's not endemic, so we shouldn't worry. And they tell me that it's impossible to meet all the UK standards. That simply isn't the case. Which country in the world has the toughest compliance standards? It's actually the UAE. It's the hardest place in the world to get a product to comply to their standards. Easiest place in the world? Ireland. Maybe everybody's relaxed, I'm not sure, but it was interesting to read that. The UK, out of the 85 countries surveyed by TMF, the UK is 49th out of 85 countries. It really isn't as hard as people make out to get a compliant standard. Other elements that I hear, the cost of compliance just isn't viable. It costs too much to bring products to the market. In reality, we know that compliance increases productivity because it reduces rework. I know Richard is very passionate about getting it right first time. This is what this is about. If you put products on the network that comply to a standard, it reduces the rework. It reduces the risk of reputational damage. If you put a product out there that is non-compliant and something happens, there's an incident, your company reputation is on the line. Is it really worth it? It reduces waste. It reduces legal fees, because if you get a fine or a compensation issue due to a non-compliant to a standard, you don't have to pay those fees. It reduces unforeseen costs such as fines, as I mentioned before. It reduces management time, because you're not doing those repeat visits. You're not going back to site to deal with something that's probably this much of a vast scheme. It reduces the risk of conviction. People get nervous when I say this. People think, you know, what do I mean? But let's take, for example, signage. temporary signage, for instance. What would happen if you had a sign on the network and someone ploughed into a road closure and was killed? And someone said that sign is not compliant. We don't actually, we haven't got evidence of how that would pan out at this point, but believe me, I don't want to find out. I don't want to be placed in that position. I don't want to be part of a company that puts the public at risk. Another point that people try and make to me is the price differential is vast. I can get this from this country, that country, and it will be far cheaper than compliant products on the network. We've done studies on this. The materials in certain industries, they literally pence in a square metre difference between a compliant and a non-compliant material. It's not an excuse. It should never be an excuse. Whole life costs. If something complies to a standard, it's warranty for the correct period. It's the right standard piece of equipment for that job. It's the right material for that position. The whole life cost will ultimately bear fruit. Product failures and revisits, back to what I said earlier, loss of reputation. Is it really worth it to lose your reputation for a few pence or a few pounds in difference? Loss of contracts in the future, and most importantly, the risk to health and safety. So what leads to non-compliance? What causes some of that issue? A phrase that's often used in highways, the race to the bottom. There is an obligation, I believe, on both client and contractors alike to make sure that you are putting products on the network that are fully compliant. If you get a tender in, and I've been part of this world, I've been a contractor for 20 odd years, and someone from a client, maybe a local authority or a small council will say to me, we didn't get that work because you were 30% more expensive than the contractor that won it. So did you question that? No. Why would I question it? It's cheaper. No, there is a reason for why something is cheaper. Lengthy approval processes. Anybody here that's had to put a product through type approval, it can be a long process. But there are reasons why it's a long process. And anybody who needs to get something signed off by a minister, in the current circumstances, you try getting something signed off by a minister. Let's just all go on holiday and come back another time. There is a lack of understanding in some areas of the regulatory processes and a lack of knowledge of compliance of each product. Engineers, by trade, they're a jack of all trades, they have to be. And there's a lot of specification work that goes on. Guys go down a list, effectively in some cases it's a tick box, and say, well, if it's got BS this, it's got EN that, surely that's compliant. Actually, in certain industries, there's a whole lot more to that, and we have to get smarter and understand what signifies a compliant product or service. And it's not just about the product itself. Remember, it's how you install that product. It's how you run that product. Lack of in-depth specification. I almost cry when I hear people talking about high friction surfacing in the UK. We invented this stuff, but we've destroyed it by a combination of poor installation and lack of in-depth specification. I was in that industry at one point, and I would look at a tender from a council that would specify a PSV. If it only specified a PSV, I would try and get in contact straight away and say, what else? If you only specify a PSV, what do you get? You get a nice cheap product that meets that standard that you've asked for in the tender. But I've seen it happen 12 months later. No more high friction service, it's all gone. Because no one said anything about longevity. No one said to me about whole life cost. So I've just met the specification. A lack of inspection regimes. And I'll come on to this, but how do we solve that issue? There's a lot of, we might have non-compliant compliant products. But how do we get round those products and actually check whether they're fully compliant? It's not an easy thing to do, and I'll come on to how I think we can potentially tackle that. A lack of quality markings in some product segments. When I talk about this issue a lot. When I go to councils and I talk to engineers and I talk to highways inspectors and others, they say if there were products that were easier to spot, so if the quality markings were clearer, they would be able to inspect that and cause inform about contractual changes, fines, mitigation against a contract that doesn't comply with the standard. So there's a bit of a responsibility there for material suppliers, for contractors alike, to make sure that the product is easily identifiable as meeting the standard. So, some examples of non-compliance, temporary traffic signs that I mentioned before. There is a particular problem I always find with the declaration of performance to the class in RA1 and RA2. In theory, I could go, that's a compliance sign. I can put a self-declaration out on temporary to say that that's a compliance sign. A lot of engineers that I speak to think that as long as it's got the right PS number, well, fine. Actually, it must have natural weathering test reports to go with that temporary sign. If you do not have the data sheets to prove that that material has gone through natural weathering tests, it is a non-compliant temporary traffic sign. Example of what happens: you get fading, you get changes because it hasn't been through the weathering tests, and you get fading over time. What does that mean in terms of enforcement? If you can't see a sign, how can you enforce it? Then, of course, you have the more fun side of it, where you might think, if that was some sort of enforcement sign, it would be difficult to enforce it because it's not spelled correctly. Let's deal with the simple. Road markings, in the sector I've worked in. I can tour around the network and I can see non-compliant lines everywhere. Certainly non-compliant to the technical specifications. So I'll go to a line, it's got no glass beads in it. I see white lines in local authorities with no glass beads. Not acceptable. I see wrong depth, I see wrong dimension. The spelling, again, I just find that funny in some cases, but ultimately, if you wanted to enforce that keep clear sign, you now can't because it's not spelled correctly. I think that's a get out of jail clause. Why would you do that? High friction service that I was talking about before. PSV only. I mean, that picture, probably a binder issue that's caused that problem. Let's get the specification right, the longevity, the method of application. Make sure the bauxite stipulations are adhered to. There's a lot of high friction servicing that I've seen, and someone will say that's Chinese bauxite. No, it's not. It's Indian. If there's a stipulation, you follow that stipulation. That's the whole point of the standard. MVMS, something that Renix do a lot of. Under the TSRGT, it can be a little bit tense around the number of different suppliers of MVMS. You have to have certain things under TSRG to make sure that your sign is compliant when it's displayed. So there are certain messages. Everybody should know that there are certain messages within that guidance that you are allowed to display. If you display them in different font sizes and in different messages, if that message is scrolling, it is non-compliant. I'm fairly certain that isn't one of the pre-written TSRGD signs. I'm fairly certain that's not the case. In fairness, that's America. I didn't take that off the UK Council. That's fine. Flippant, but I'm trying to illustrate the point that how many times do you see signs with different messages on, and they are non-compliant? You cannot display messages that are multicolour, for instance, if you are on the network. Safety barriers. Where do we go with safety barriers? We look across the entire country. This one could be a very thorny issue, I know, but old barriers that have been there for donkeys, are they still compliant? I very much doubt it in a lot of cases. It's a huge cost, but what do we do about that? So what can be done? I think as clients and contractors, we must act with integrity, leadership and ethics. We have to be shown to lead the way, make the standard correct, make the investment, and don't allow non-compliant products onto the network. Use common sense. We forget that common sense comes into a lot of why we have standards in the first place. Suppliers potentially introducing new quality marks. There are ways to do that so that it makes it more readily identifiable. An interesting comment that someone said to me, why can't I replicate the fines that I give utility companies for reinstatement for other types of non-compliant product? That can then pay for an inspection regime. There are ways to look at this of how we could potentially do it. If you're enforcing their contract fines, there is ways to make sure that the inspection regime is affordable and is reality. Upskill and educate engineers. This is not a criticism of engineers, it absolutely isn't. It's the fact that there are so many things out there. People like the IHE, their work is so important, and I really would encourage everybody to go along to their courses and understand the latest in standards and compliance.